Good morning, everybody. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack here. I'm in Lakeland, Florida. I'm going to do two updates today. This one here, fairly short. I want to make sure Florida's ready for this. Milton is going to be bad. So I just want to go over some things that I've been looking at. Then I'm going to do another update around noon because we're going to have the 12Z GFS, the Global Forecast System global model, and I'll do another update then based on that and the 11 o'clock advisory package information. And then we're going to head over to Tampa. I will, and I'll meet up with my colleagues over there, and we're going to start to get to work in setting out all of these camera systems in our weather stations from Tampa south, probably down to Punta Gorda area, the Charlotte Harbor region. So let's get on with it. Let me show you what we're looking at. National Hurricane Center stats. We have the intermediate advisory that comes out, and it's on Central Time because our hurricane is located just east of 90 degrees longitude there in the Central Time Zone. So anyway, it is 7 a.m. Central Time. The pressure has come up quite a bit from that extraordinary low last night of at least 897 millibars, and the wind has come down quite a bit as well. Still a formidable and growing in size, just like I told you it would, and it's not like I'm some genius that figured that out. It was right there in front of us in the modeling, but it is coming to fruition that it is growing in size, and it'll continue to do so, and that is going to push a huge storm surge towards the Florida coast, and we're going to have storm surge problems on the East Coast. So I want to show you something. Let's look at the public advisory real quick, and I've been really harping on this the last few updates. Let's jump down here to the discussion and outlook where we have the hurricane force wind and tropical storm force wind information right through here. Hurricane force winds extend out up to 30 miles. Tropical storm force winds out up to 105 miles from the center. So let's jump over to the satellite imagery. You can see it is recovering from the eye wall replacement cycle, a very complex and quite frankly, little understood phenomenon in hurricanes. Why do they do that? Why don't they just build an eye wall of deep thunderstorms or convection and leave it? Why do they got to go and create another one? It's one of these really interesting processes that we see in pretty much all intense tropical cyclones on our planet. So it certainly has a larger eye than what we saw yesterday. This thing's pretty darn big. And this whole thing, obviously, this is the hurricane, and I know I'm pointing out the obvious, but that's important because these are not hurricanes. These are just little symbols and dots and annotations on a map, a very good map at that, but that is not the hurricane. So when we talk about that hurricane force winds extend out up to 30 miles from the center, and by the way, the 8 a.m. intermediate advisory is north of the forecast track by just a little bit. It's very interesting when we can point that out because the dashed line was the 5 a.m. forecast track. That's the full advisory package. And by the way, it is forecast to reach a 5 again. And then the intermediate advisory is just a few hours later, and it's showing that it's just a little bit north of where the forecast track was. Doesn't matter right now, but it could matter down the road, something to watch for. But one thing that I asked our development team to do, specifically Mr. Woodgate over in the UK, who built this map for us, is to have a way to show you what does 30 miles and 105 miles and so forth, what does that look like? So let's draw it. Really neat tool right here. There's the hurricane symbol anyway. So what does 30 miles look like? Well, let's just kind of draw it right here. And there's 2 miles, and you get, there's 10, 15. So let's get it all the way out to 30. And you see, there we go, that's close enough. So that is what 30 miles from the center of circulation would look like, just so you can kind of visualize it. So let's get rid of that and then move on up here to where this is forecast to make landfall. And I can zoom in a little bit. This is really, really neat. Now let me come back on for a second. Let's assume that we get lucky and the radius of the extent, what we call the radius of maximum winds, that the hurricane force winds only extend out 30 miles from the center, when it makes landfall. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be much larger. I don't know exactly. I can't put a number on it. But let's just pretend that it's going to stay at 30. All right? We want to be a little conservative, not overdo things and hype something up we don't know yet. Don't want to speculate too much. So let's take a look at what 30 would look like very close to this landfall point right down here, shall we? All right, so let's click right here, and we can draw this out to 30 miles, and it might go over just a little bit. There we go. So that is 30 miles. You understand? So that is a pretty darn big area that could experience hurricane force wind. And then the tropical storm force wind is 105 miles. We got to back out for that. So let's just assume, let's do the circle here, that 105 miles from the center, roughly right there. So that's 105 miles, right? That's a large area of tropical storm force wind. So it's not uniform, though. I want to make that very, very clear. It's not a perfect circle. It's not hurricane force wind or tropical storm force wind everywhere in that circle. And if you look on advanced tracking programs where the wind radii are plotted on there, they look like little pie slices. Because in some quadrants of the hurricane, the wind field's not as uniform. But this gives us something to at least visualize it. That's what it could look like. All right? As our tracking map evolves over the years, these tools will just get better and better. And so it's that large area of wind that could be a real problem, driving in a big storm surge. And speaking of that big storm surge, let's go back up here to the home page real quick and look at this, because now we've got the problem of surge, of course, in the purple and the reds. Those are our most concerning areas. But we've also added quite a bit of surge here to the east coast, southeast coast, trying to draw on it where it will stand out. All right, there we go. So South Carolina down to Sebastian Inlet. So basically Edisto Beach down to Sebastian Inlet. At least 2 feet. And in some cases here in northeast Florida, because of this concave shape of the coastline here, 3 to 5 feet. St. Augustine, Palm Coast, Ormond Beach, possibly, the beaches of Jacksonville, the Altamaha Sound, parts of Georgia there, maybe 3, 4, 5 feet. That is problematic. And the reason is, Milton's going to cut across, of course, and then the flow out this way is from the northeast, and it's just going to pile up the water. So you need to be aware of that. You need to be ready. Use today to finish your plans of evacuating and doing all that other stuff, because it's probably going to intensify again, and that is reflected in the official forecast, by the way. It's forecast to make it up to Category 5 again, and then weaken from there, but the wind field is expected to expand, and then it makes landfall as a solid Category 3 in Florida here, near the mouth of the Tampa Bay, with the worst of the surge being focused down in this area more than likely, in that right front quadrant, and it'll really all come down to what kind of a core remains with this system. And then, as I said, as it comes offshore here, our flow is going to come in right off the Atlantic and really build up the ocean, and we're going to have some big problems along A1A in the morning hours of Thursday. Speaking of morning hours, it does look like this comes in at an absolute horrible time, 2 a.m. roughly Eastern time. Totally against that. Nothing we can do, despite the rumors that you've heard and seen on social media. One of the things I'm very concerned about, unfortunately, by the way, the sea surface temperature maps that I like to use are not updating the actual sea surface temperature maps to show the contours, because I believe the office that handles those is in Asheville, North Carolina, and they've kind of had a lot of problems lately, as you're probably well aware of. But the anomalies map has been updating, and when I do the update this afternoon, we'll get the October 7th version. It's always a day behind. But I did want to point out that our Hurricane Milton here is right down here, passing over anomalously warm water. Everything pretty much is. And it's going to go over the loop current. And then this right here that bothers me a lot. These anomalies here 2 degrees plus Celsius warmer than average. So any extra amount of upper ocean heat content, latent heat in the ocean, is very problematic, and it's going to allow Milton to be very intense, very large, very wet as it comes on shore, and it's going to be a major, major catastrophe. You guys already know this, but I'm just re-emphasizing it. Nothing's changed. It still looks very, very grim, and Florida better be ready. You guys have got to be ready by getting out of the way if you're in harm's way. And then I got to tell you, we have to think about this mentally too. It's not pleasant, but this is going to leave a big scar for a lot of people. And we have to think about what happens after. We got to start thinking about that. How are you going to handle your insurance claims? If you've got flood insurance, what do you need to do? Use today and tomorrow to just look that up. Call somebody, email somebody, use Google search, whatever. Maybe AI stuff like ChatGPT can help you, hopefully. But you have to start thinking about these things. Document, document, document. Take pictures of all your stuff inside, outside your property. Everybody has one of these pretty much, right? You've got the power to document what you need right there with some videos. It geotags it too. It puts metadata in there with the date and whatnot. Because this is not going to be something that it's much more unlikely now that we're going to just get off lucky. Oh, it's going to suddenly weaken and everything's fine. That gap is starting to close there between where it is now and where it is headed by late tomorrow night. All right, so that's my update for now. Wish I had better news, but we have to face it sometimes and just be completely real and completely to the point. Again, I'll have another update around the time of the 12Z GFS guidance. We'll look at that, the global model, and then examine the 11 o'clock full package from the National Hurricane Center. I'm Mark Sudduth. As always, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, all the stuff that the big YouTubers say. I do appreciate it, though, seriously, but it does help if you hit the like button. I tell you, what a world, right? It's the algorithm, but I appreciate it. We all do at the HurricaneTrack community. I'll talk to you again in a few hours.